Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
It feels as though it's been a long time coming, but tomorrow, finally, one of the most concerted attempts to tackle the childhood obesity epidemic in Britain will come into effect. The sugar tax will add either 18 or 24 pence to a litre of soft drinks, depending on how much of the stuff has been added. All sorts of claims have been made for how that will change our buying and consuming habits, but not everyone thinks it'll work.
One way or another, fizzy drinks are changing, either in taste or price. The government is hoping manufacturers will cut sugar in their drinks. If not, it hopes the price rises encourage us to drink less. Either way, health campaigners believe this could be the first step to curbing our taste for sugar.
There's great evidence that you can change people's palate over time. In the way that we've reduced the salt in our food over the last decade or so, we can reduce the sugar, and companies are already doing so, and that's really welcome. That's an excellent outcome. So by bringing in a tax, the sugary drink companies have already started to respond.
Many of the big supermarkets have already reformulated their own brand drinks to have less sugar and therefore avoid the tax. Manufacturers have also acted. As an incentive, the sugar tax is already working. Many brands have cut the amount of sugar in their drinks. But the big one, Coca-Cola, they say they won't tamper with their classic Coke recipe. Instead, they're changing the size of their bottles and putting up prices. The company says there's no evidence taxing soft drinks reduces obesity rates. Others are concerned at what they see as an attack on freedom of choice.
People already know what too much sugar can do to them, and they already have lots of low and no sugar drinks available to them. I think that this is a real trap that politicians can fall into, of wanting to be seen to do something without thinking about whether that something will actually work or whether it has other consequences for people.
But with more children with decaying teeth, as well as an obesity crisis, doctors, dentists and nutritionists argue this must be the first of many measures to change how we eat and drink.
I think one significant missing step is looking at the levels of promotions and marketing on products that are excessively high in sugar, and whether these types of products should be stopped from promoting and targeting young families.
Nobody believes this will be the silver bullet to improving our diets. The government says it hasn't ruled out doing more in the future. Duncan Golostani, News at 10.
In 55 minutes' time, the government will put the brakes on our sugar rush. The sugar tax comes in at midnight, but already the revenue, originally forecast to pour into the Treasury coffers, 500 million, has been downgraded by the government to 240 million. It affects soft drinks with more than 5 grams of added sugar per 100 millimetres. But many of the big drinks companies have been getting ahead of the game, reformulating their product to below the taxable limit. There's criticism that the tax is regressive, assuming the cost of sugar-laden drinks is passed on to the customer. The poorest will be hardest hit. It's also claimed the government would have to go a lot further to have an impact on obesity, curbing sugar in yoghurts and yoghurt drinks, cakes and puddings, not to mention staples such as bread. On the eve of the introduction to the tax, I spoke about it to his architect, the former Chancellor, George Osborne.
When we introduced the sugar tax, the whole idea was to get the industry to take sugar out of sugary drinks. And what the independent assessors have done, the OBR have done, is they've looked at the sugar tax, and they actually say the manufacturers are getting sugar out of the drinks quicker than they expected. It was their original estimate, not mine. And that's great news. I mean, that means that the tax is doing its job, which is to get sugar out of our diets and protect our kids.
So it really was about reformulation. It really wasn't about the tax.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I promise you, it was not about trying to get some money in, because the sums of money, although of course they'll sound big, if I say now 500 million pounds, but that was out of a government budget of around 800 billion pounds. So you would not do something as potentially controversial as a sugar tax to raise such a relatively small sum of money.
But if you look at Mexico, which has a sugar tax, it hasn't reduced obesity. In fact, obesity is mildly risen.
Well, There are lots of reasons why obesity is rising in our society, but a good thing to start doing is remove some of the causes of it. And there's been a recent medical study out of Oxford University that suggests that actually the sugar tax will reduce by many thousands both the number of people who are obese, but also, for example, the number of people who get type 2 diabetes.
But you are very much one, not quite a libertarian, but you would suggest surely that what you want to do is give people free choice and limited taxes. What you're now doing is reducing choice in a way and imposing taxes.
Well, I'm actually not a libertarian. I think there is a role for government in public health issues. You know, I support simple things like wearing a seatbelt in a car and making that a criminal, an offence not to wear a seatbelt. I supported the smoking ban when I was an MP, even though it was a free vote and lots of Conservatives didn't at the time. So I think there are moments when governments should intervene. And tax, after all, if you're a Conservative, you always use the argument, well, if you have lower taxes, you'll encourage certain things like more business or more jobs or whatever. But it works the other way, of course. If you think tax discourages things, so you want to lower it on the things that are good, you can raise tax on the things that are bad.
What do you think about people who say this is going to hit poor people most because they're the ones that drink the sugary drinks?
Well, the truth is in our society that lower income people often have some of the biggest public health problems, that obesity disproportionately affects lower income people, and actually they are the people therefore who in health terms are likely to most benefit from the cola manufacturers and the sugary drink manufacturers reducing the sugar. And by the way, this is not, they don't have to drink less of the drink. They can just make sure the manufacturers have less sugar in the drink. And I think that's what the manufacturers are doing.
So would you put money on our obesity rates having dropped by this time next year?
I think there are also things that go into the obesity rates, which are climbing in Britain as in other countries. But I certainly think they would have been higher but for the sugar tax. I suspect the sugar tax will start to be extended to things like milk products, which I was nervous of going into in the first instance because I wanted to establish the case for a sugar tax. But if I'd remained as Chancellor, I would have moved into things like sugary milkshakes.
But you just said if you had been Chancellor, you would have extended this. But that hasn't happened. I mean, do you think the government has actually been too timid given that you started this in 2016?
Now, I'm saying, if I had been Chancellor, I was already, before I left office, looking at whether you could extend it to sugar added to milk products like sugary milkshakes.
But if you're already looking into that, what's happened to that?
Well, I'm not sure is the short answer. I think it will be for others to take further steps forward, and I would predict those steps will be taken.
Quickly?
I don't know is the short answer. You have to get the current Chancellor, not the former one.
Oh yeah, but do you ever advise the current Chancellor?
No, he does his own thing.
Is that, do you think, in your time as Chancellor, one of the most important things you did?
Well, it's certainly one of the things I'm proudest of, because I think it was one of the sort of politically riskiest, or it certainly felt like it at the time. And it was entirely discretionary. I didn't have to do it at all. In fact, everyone was saying, probably not.
George Osborne, thank you.
Thank you.
I've been